Okay, well, welcome everyone to the next session of the Sustainable Cities track. And this is UT Going Green. We have as our speaker today, Jay Price. I'll give a word of introduction. Jay has been with the University of Tennessee since 2007. He started here as environmental coordinator, coordinating what was then the budding recycling program. And as that program grew in both staff and scope, he was promoted to take over the role of recycling manager for the campus. And then in 2019, he took on his current role as sustainability manager. So this is the position he now holds. And he's done some great work in that role and will tell us about that now. So Jay, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I really appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to speak. Can everyone hear me okay? Just maybe a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, awesome. If at any time my speaker tends to go a little weird, my microphone rather, somebody waved their arms or something, so I realize that that's happening. But anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity. I know we have limited time, so I'm just going to jump right in. Again, I'm with the Office of Sustainability on campus, and we like to use the term Make Orange Green. That actually is kind of an umbrella term that we use for kind of all things sustainability on campus, and we've been using that since about 2006 when the office first started, so even before I got here. But so let me just move my slides here. Uh-oh, why is it not working? There we go. Okay, so just a brief outline of what I wanted to talk about today. So I'll give a little bit of a policy history to start out, and then talk about how we fund some of our sustainability initiatives on campus. And then this topic is specifically focused on our sustainability master plan. So I'll go through each of the aspects of that master plan. And if you're interested in looking at that, it's at our website, sustainability.utk.edu. You can look that up. It's we did never print any, it's just an online version. So you can go through there and look at that when you get the opportunity to do so. But I'll talk through each of the components: carbon emissions, energy, transportation, waste, land and water use, and engagement. So a little history, and specifically I wanted to focus on things that have the most bearing on carbon emissions specifically. So in 2007, our chancellor at the time signed I call it ACUPAC, so American College and Universities President's Climate Commitment. That's a mouthful. So ACUPCC, which essentially at that point mandated that we create a climate action plan. And it took us a few years to do that. In 2010, we released that plan, and it set our carbon neutrality goal of 2061. So that's the year 2061. That's still a ways off. And at the time, that felt like a good goal. It was 50 years in the future, and we were going to do a 20% reduction in carbon emissions every 10 years and get there. But as we know, that's not soon enough. So we're working to hopefully move that goal forward. In 2008, the campus created an energy policy. And some of the key points of that, we set temperature, our set points. So we heat to 68 degrees and no higher, and we cool to 76 degrees and no cooler. And that's saved millions and millions of dollars over the years since we did that. We also had a chancellor's challenge, which the chancellor came out and said, okay, we have a goal to reduce our energy use by 10% over the next year. And year one, we were able to do that. And the chancellor said, okay, well, great, this is awesome. We saved over $1 million just in this 1 year. Let's do this again. And so year two, unfortunately, we were only able to save about 2%, but still, just by switching people's behaviors, things like turning off their lights and removing mini refrigerators and heaters and things like that in people's offices, we were able to reduce our electricity use by 12% with behavioral change type of things. And that went along with the Switch Your Thinking campaign. That's what the SYT stands for, Switch Your Thinking. So we had our mascot involved, and we had this giant light switch, and there was a building on campus. We call it the Spam Can, but it's Stokely Management Center. And it was literally designed where the lights would never turn off. They were on 24/7. The architect thought that was a great idea because it's a glass building and you could see these lights, and it's so beautiful, this beacon of light. And so we had a lovely day where the chancellor turned this giant life-size light switch off, and the lights turned off in the building for the first time in 30 years since the building had been built. So things like that, we were really focused on doing some major energy reductions, and it worked. We also established an energy task force at that point. And then jump ahead 10 years, we signed the Declaration on the University Global Engagement, which essentially is, if you're familiar with the UN's Sustainable Development Guidelines, or SDGs, essentially we are now submitting each year our work towards the SDGs, and we get a rating from that. So, and then even this year, just before the pandemic hit and things turned crazy, our chancellor signed a zero waste commitment. So zero waste is typically defined as a 90% diversion from the landfill. We realize that you'll never quite reach zero, unfortunately, but our first step towards that is in 10 years to reach a 50% diversion from landfill goal. And then once we hit that, move forward and continue to establish goals into the future. So for funding mechanisms, sometimes it takes money to save money and to do the right thing and to reduce carbon emissions. So in 2005, students actually voted to essentially tax themselves. It's officially called the SEIF, which is the Student Environmental Initiatives Fund. But we know it as the green fee essentially on campus. So it's part of their facilities fee. Each semester, in-state students pay $30 a semester, and out-of-state students pay, in-state pay $10 per semester, out-of-state students pay $30 per semester. And that generates approximately $840,000 a year. That's actually double what it started out as. It was $5, actually a little more than double, because it was $5 per semester and $10 per semester for out-of-state, but they voted to increase that later on. So the goal behind that was to purchase green power. That was the students' initial push. They voted to do it. They signed petitions, did the whole thing, and it's morphed a little bit since then, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So another piece is our Green Revolving Fund. So in 2014, we established that. We used $100,000 from the green fee to seed that. And essentially what that does is it puts money towards energy savings projects, and the savings from those projects pay the money back to the fund in full. And then we continue to accumulate the savings for 5 to 10 years beyond that. So it grows the fund. So it started out with $100,000. It's up to $450,000 this year. And our two most recent fiscal years on record, it was $165,000 that was coming back into that fund. So I'll talk later, but we're continuing to increase that fund so that we can do bigger and bigger projects on campus. And then in 2017, our Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration agreed to fund several big projects on campus that had major energy savings components with them. So what is our master plan? As I mentioned, when our chancellor signed the ACUPAC, the American College and Universities President's Climate Commitment, we had to create a climate action plan. And part of that, at least every 10 years, every 5 years, we were updating it. But our big 10-year update, instead of just focusing on climate change, we decided to look at a broader picture. Climate can probably encompass just about everything, but not a lot in the social justice side of things. And so anyway, this is we felt like a more encompassing plan, and kind of two big pieces of this, our vision for this is to continue with our goal to achieve carbon neutrality and zero waste as soon as possible, and then essentially reduce our environmental impact as well. So this is set up as a guide for the next 10 years, and it will be updated every 5 years. And it's hard to read, and I didn't mean for it to be read. It's just an image essentially, but we created a series of playbooks. So simple guides for different groups on campus. So students, they have a guide, faculty have a guide, staff and administrators have a guide as well. And so we take each of the key 5 points of our our sustainability master plan, and we give them tips on those. So the dark green there is conserve energy, the lighter green is reduce waste, etc. So I'll talk about each of those components in a moment. So the first piece is carbon emissions, and this is more of an overview really than goals. So I mentioned with the green fee, students voted to buy renewable energy credits or green power, which are not necessarily synonymous. And so as over the years, we found different entities that were selling renewable energy credits. So instead of just buying them locally, we started to buy them from a larger region, so they got cheaper. And in 2016, we were actually able to offset all of our purchased electricity on campus using these renewable energy credits. So if you were to look at our greenhouse gas emissions, they really went down, which was awesome. But we realized that we're sending money off somewhere else. We're not seeing the direct benefits of that. All we get's a fancy little piece of paper and like checking the box of, well, you're reducing your carbon emissions, but are we really? And so that question came up, and so we actually the committee that oversees the funding decided to stop buying the RECs or renewable energy credits and reallocate that to energy efficiency projects on campus and renewable energy on campus as well. And so that just happened this past year. We haven't really put that money to use yet, so we're still looking for good opportunities to do that. But if you can see, our greenhouse gas emissions started to go down a little bit. 2010, 2011 went back up, and then they've been fairly stable. So that climate action plan, we're supposed to be 20% below our 2008 emissions by June of next year. I can't really tell, but we're pretty much level there by looking at that chart. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we haven't really gone down. So we've got a long way to go in the next, 8 months or so, 9 months, I guess. We probably won't get there. Campus has grown immensely in terms of square footage. So that's been a battle that we're fighting, but hopefully we can find some projects where we can bring that line back down. You can see there on the right as well. Again, we don't need to go into super details with those, but you can see where our big hitters are. You know, purchased electricity is our biggest emissions category. And again, these are just scope 1 and scope 2. So this does not include things like commuting to our campus. And what's the other big one that it doesn't include? Like air, well, it does include air travel. Sorry, my mind's drawing a blank right now. But anyway, our co-generator steam, basically our steam plant, essentially, cogeneration is about 1/4 of our greenhouse gas emissions. Even though we switched from coal to natural gas, it's still one of our biggest contributors to greenhouse gases on our campus. And then air travel. We actually do generate a little bit of electricity at our steam plant as well. Again, with that cogeneration, generating steam and electricity, etc. So you can see, like, we spend a lot of time talking about waste, but in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, it's less than 1%. So anyway, I'll move forward. So energy is a big one. Our purchased electricity is our biggest contributor to greenhouse gas, almost half of the greenhouse gas emissions from campus. So the sustainability master plan, we kind of set it up with a a picture of what's happening now, some potential initiatives that we could undertake, and goals. So I'll start with the goals that we have in this category. So by 2030, our goal is to buy or generate 20% of our total electricity with renewables. There's several different ways that we can do that. I actually just proposed a $3.5 million solar proposal for campus, 4 buildings that would have solar panels put on top. There would be 0 out-of-pocket expense, and we'd pay off the solar panels in 20 years and save like $2.5 million total cost. So fingers crossed. Everybody's a little focused on COVID-19 response, and just making sure we survive and get through this semester. But hopefully they'll take the time to look at that, and we can push that forward. So things like that, we're hoping to do a lot more on campus. We have, you can see one little solar array on campus there. That's on top of the 11th Street parking garage. I'm getting ahead of myself though. So again, another goal, efficiency projects to increase that green revolving fund from its current $450,000 to $1 million. Again, the more money we have in there, the bigger the project that we can tackle, and we can continue to grow that fund and do more and more energy efficiency on campus. And then reduce our electricity consumption to our 1993 levels. For some reason, 1993 keeps coming up. It must have been a really great year for efficiency. It was about our lowest water usage on campus and one of our lowest levels of electricity per square foot. So we're hoping to, whoops, let me go back one, reduce our electricity consumption to those levels. One of our initiatives that we're working on right now is doing thermal audits with drones. So fly a drone over that has essentially an infrared camera on it that senses where air leaks are in buildings, and then we can address those. Believe it or not, we don't have electricity meters on all of our buildings. And we certainly don't have sub-meters within those buildings to get at the department level or college level, et cetera. So working on those and being able to see our electricity consumption in real time. And then one of our biggest energy savings has been LED lighting retrofits. So we started with Thompson Bowling Arena actually, and better lighting, much cheaper, less heat, all of the above. We've switched all of our parking garages on campus to LED, and a huge portion of our buildings, I don't know exactly what percentage, but I believe by the end of this year, we're supposed to have switched out all of our lighting on campus to LEDs. So transportation is the next one. Goals by 2030. We hope to have 10% of our university-owned vehicles be either electric or alternative fuel. As you can see down below, currently we're at 2.9%. We have 36 vehicles on campus. We hope to reduce our fuel consumption by 10% and increase our pedestrian and bike-friendly travel ways. The picture that I show on the right there is one such initiative that we've taken on campus. Volunteer Boulevard has raised crosswalks, widened sidewalks, and really improved the pedestrian access on our campus. It's amazing how much of a difference little things like raised crosswalks and wider sidewalks make on campus. Another initiative that we have right now, we're extending our pedestrian walkway. So there's Andy Holt Avenue used to run east to west, kind of right down the center of campus. There's very little of Andy Holt Avenue left compared to what it used to be. It's now essentially just a pedestrian walk zone, and we're almost finished with the last, well, not the last, but the second to last section of that goes right in front of a lot of the residence halls. It will have, well, huge sidewalks as well as a stormwater feature in it. So you'll literally have running water and little waterfalls and other things like that all comes from stormwater. So it's a really neat project. So excited to see that happen. Oh, and right sizing vehicles. That was the last bullet point there. So we've taken a lot of like F-350 dump trucks and made them these, not made them, but sold those and switched them for little tiny two-seater basically little golf carts, essentially. They didn't go all the way to electric. I was really pushing for that, but they consume way less fuel than the big ones. So we've switched out a total of 4 of those so far. And then again, as we update vehicles, why is this truck an F-250 that has a V10 engine, like 6.2 liter V10 engine in it? We can switch that to an F-150 with a 2.7 liter V6 engine and get the same amount of work done with that truck. So we're in the process of doing that as well. So waste, even though it's a tiny portion of our greenhouse gas emission profile, waste is still it's a touch point for people, right? It's something that everyone can relate to, everyone handles and deals with on a daily basis. So our goal is to reduce divert 50% of our waste from our landfill. And the picture on the right there is actually our current composting facility. So we have about a 2-acre composting facility where we take food, plant, and animal wastes of all kinds, including compostable serviceware, utensils, cups, plates, etc. We mix it all together in these giant windrows. You can just barely see the little orange pickup truck, the tippy top of it right there. It's got a dump bed on the back of it and a cart tipper. So we handle a lot of material out there. We keep manure and bedding separate from food, leaves, and wood chips. And we use those, there's one mix we call the garden mix, the garden windrows, and then the other one we call the pasture mix. So basically designating where those end up getting used on campus. So, but a lot of great soil amendment and erosion control and other things that we do with the compost in the end. We also want to capture and donate more food. We're able to do a small portion of that on campus. I think last year was about 22,000 pounds that we were able to capture and donate to local entities like CARM and the Love Kitchen and Second Harvest, mostly from football games in the luxury areas. They have lots of leftover food that we were able to capture. And then another goal is to eliminate single-use plastics. Unfortunately, with COVID-19 happening right now, we're taking a step back in that. So we used to have pump condiments and things like that, big giant ketchup things that people would pump, but they've gone back to condiment packets, unfortunately, and a lot more kind of to-go type of things. So we're trying to switch those to compostable, but we've got a long way to go there. Quickly on the initiatives, My Tiny Trash is we switched everyone's desk side 7-gallon trash can to a 3-quart trash can. So, and instead of the cleaning staff being the ones emptying the trash and recycling in each person's office, folks have to empty their own. And just that visual switch and the reminder and people taking the responsibility for their own waste, we've seen huge increases in recycling and decreases in waste. And we've been able to save a lot of money and not having to dispose of all of that waste, as well as redirecting custodial labor to now disinfecting a lot of things, right? So doing some deeper cleaning on campus. We have a free store. We gather donations from students as they move out or at our public recycling drop-off. And we set up pop-up shops where people just come and get stuff for free, clothes, dishes, you name it. We're looking for a permanent location for that on campus, which would be really exciting. We have a mug project, which is essentially an incentive program where you bring a reusable container in and you get a discount. Unfortunately, that's on pause right now with COVID. But our water bottle refill stations, we have approximately 200 of those on campus. Those are still functional right now, which is exciting. And just so everyone knows, if you're in the area and you need a place to take your recyclables, we have a 24/7, 365 public recycling drop-off. And we take everything from plastic bags to your standard number 1 through 7 plastics, cardboard, electronics, batteries. So some stuff that a lot of other entities won't take at recycling drop-offs. So land and water use. I've got 2 slides on this. First, the goals. The little picture here will kind of explain what I'm talking about. So That's an autonomous electric lawnmower that is solar powered. So it goes into this docking station, gets charged up each night. Well, the solar panels are being used during the day and gathering the light, of course, and then battery storage, etc. You get it though. So we have 3 of these now. Only one of them has this solar docking station though. So our goal is to mow 40% of campus, the main campus, with this type of mower. Why not 100%? Well, there's just areas where this won't work, like on really steep slopes and other stuff like that, and in tight spaces and etc. And then 80% of our Cherokee campus. So right now we just have 3 of these, but our goal is to get to 60 of them, and again redirect the labor that's going to this, to mowing on campus, to other things.
Jay, let me just interrupt for a second to let you know that there are 5 minutes left. So if you could wrap up as quickly as possible, then we'll have a few minutes for questions.
You bet. All right, I'm going to skip ahead then. So goats on campus. So here's some of our current initiatives. That bioswells are essentially stormwater catchment and watering plants with those. So you can see some of those other things. I'll just, sorry, I'm talked too much apparently, but good to know. Let's see, anything I really want to hit there? I think that those are all fairly self-explanatory. So the last piece is engagement. So some of our goals, we really want to center racial equity and social justice in all of our work on campus. And then just increase climate change knowledge and engagement. We're doing a climate change survey right now, trying to gauge what people understand and what they think and feel about climate change, and then where the gaps are that we can help address, misunderstandings and take action on things that people are supporting on campus. So I guess that's it. I'll just close right there and take questions.
Okay, great. Well, the first question that we got was whether there are any efforts being taken to install or implement green infrastructure on campus, particularly in any new construction.
Great question. So two things. We will have 2 new well, they're building a few new buildings on campus. One right next to the football stadium, that's going to be a large science building, and we are installing a green roof on that campus, or on that building rather. And then over on the ag campus, they're building another building, and it will also have a green roof. So that's one thing. And we have yet to put solar panels on a building, believe it or not, on this campus. We do have some solar arrays, but they're for electric vehicle charging stations is all. So those are like standalone arrays. That's the most expensive way to do solar. So hopefully we can get to putting them on roofs. So just be brief in that answer.
Okay. What about having students take an environmental course as a requirement? Is that something that's been discussed at all?
It has. So there's a Common Core type of approach. I can't remember exactly what it's called. That's like K through 12. But that's a really tough sell. It's been attempted multiple times, but we have yet to get that to happen. So we do have a sustainability major on campus. We have a sustainability minor on campus, but no specific requirement for that yet. But it's been attempted several times, and we'll continue to push for that for sure.
Okay, great. Is UT able to work directly with your electric utility company to get them to have a greener mix? What influence do you have there?
Not a lot. So we work through KUB, the Knoxville Utility Board, who gets their power from TVA, and TVA has made really great strides. If you look at their, past, I think on their website they have like a fiscal year 2007 mix of what, where they got their electricity from, a 2020 or maybe 2019 mix, and then what they project it will be in 2030. They're making much bigger strides between 2007 and now than they will 2020 to 2030, unfortunately, but they more than 50% of their electricity is coming from renewable sources. Actually, it's like 56% if I remember off the top of my head. So, you know, TVA does have a lot of nuclear. They have a lot of hydroelectric, and then they're adding wind and solar, but not as much as some of us would like, unfortunately. So yeah, we don't have a lot, but I did see something at Vanderbilt where they worked with TVA to basically have TVA build a solar array and buy that electricity from them. So we were really interested in that and hope to be able to do something similar on campus, but have yet
That's
to
awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much. We are out of time, and there are a couple of questions that we did not get to. Jay, would you be willing to put your email address in the chat so that people could send those to you directly?
Certainly.
Okay, good. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much, Jay, for doing this. Really, really great information here. So good luck with all these initiatives. And I'll turn it back to you, Dawn.